Hi, everybody. This is Steve Blair with Lyceum Insurance Services, and we're continuing our topic of what's happening in the workplace. And today I have my friend Carolyn from Curio 412, who does amazing work, not only for for-profit companies, but nonprofit companies as well. When I first met with her, oh gosh, it was probably about a month or two ago, she was telling me about her business and I was like, oh my God, I got to get you on. So, hi, Carolyn, how are you?
Great. Thanks for having me, Steve.
Can you tell everybody about your background, how you came to found Curio 412 and how you all help not only nonprofits, but for-profits in their giving and everything that they do. So that would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I apologize. You're going to have a
Oh,
cat
no,
moving
it's
back and
fine.
forward back here.
We
She's
like
not too
workmates here.
not too happy when she's not the center of attention.
Yes, of course.
But I founded Curio 412 a little over a year ago, and Curio 412 works with impact management. So whether you're a nonprofit organization that needs to collect data to report to your donors, your funders, or even just to help you create good messaging around your mission, or you're a corporate organization that wants to engage in philanthropy and needs a good way to plan, implement, and manage the programs that you're doing, because essentially as a corporate organization, when you do philanthropy, you take on some of that work that typically goes on within nonprofit organizations. So Curio 412 helps both of those entities help bolster their systems a little bit so that they have the materials they need without taking too much of their time or cost, which is very valuable to anyone.
So can you just give me we were talking a couple of weeks ago about a big, I believe it was a library system. We won't say which one, for privacy. But you were doing some work with a library system that actually were part of the same library system, but they had kind of on one side of a state versus another side of a state, and helping them kind of design and to work as if they're one organization, which they should be. Can you
Right.
talk about like what you did there and to help with them?
Absolutely. So their system was very interesting because they were on, physically in two different locations, but needed to figure out what they could do to get a statewide service together. So this library system had recently rebranded, and they brought me on not as part of the rebranding effort, but after the rebranding to say, okay, we have two staffs that have sort of worked together, but not really worked together before. We have two systems that are kind of the same, but not really. And so we work together with both the staff and the administrators there to think about what are some of the systems that really need to be streamlined for the two of you together, and where are those stored, and what happens with the infrastructure for this new rebranded system, and then what are the things that you need to be able to do independently. And a lot of it came down to figuring out where is the autonomy and what are the roles and responsibilities for each of those individuals, and then from that taking the point of what are the things that we should be collecting so that we know that the service is reaching everyone statewide in the same consistent way, and that people are getting served in the, I don't want to say fastest way possible, but when they reach out, that they have this immediate connection, that they're able to get the services that they need, and get them in a consistent manner. So we worked through that process. It was a process of figuring out, okay, there's different components to your system. There's programming and outreach. So some of these activities happen on your site, some of these activities happen off your site. What are the processes and procedures, and what types of things show that those are successful? And if we're really tracking what's successful as part of those types of activities, then they should be tracked consistently through each library system as they relate to the one program. And then as you collect that data, what do you then do with it? So how does that then affect the way in which those activities function and make them better ultimately? It's not so much, I think oftentimes when you go into that situation with staff and employees, it's easy for employees to feel like, oh, we're tracking things. It's all about, how many people we see or how much we do, when really it's just managing the fact that if we're seeing a lot of people, maybe we need more staff, and maybe that's a way that we can really support our staff. Or maybe if we're kind of missing the mark on some things and we see lower attendance at certain events than others, then maybe we think about a different direction for helping to run those programs. And so We're looking at it as more of a holistic way in terms of, you were talking about what's happening in the workplace, thinking about using data and using tracking that impact of the programs that you do to really create a better system that's always constantly getting better and better piece by piece. It doesn't always have to be a big overhaul.
So that kind of leads my brain to think about, the impact of, especially when we're talking about nonprofits, and the programs that they do and how people are working on those programs, especially now that people are spread out. People aren't maybe necessarily working in a single space. Many of my nonprofit clients all of a sudden had employees all over the country, and Seattle got very popular. I don't know why, but it seems like a lot of people that I talk to jetted off to Seattle to live. And so how would you recommend that organizations, specifically nonprofits that are working on a variety of different programs, what kind of things should they be thinking about kind of now that, people can't go and meet at the water cooler and talk anymore, that, people are just kind of have populated all over the place?
Right. Well, and it is a challenge. And I think there's certain opportunities that come along with that. And then there's certain drawbacks to it. So at least from what I've seen with the organizations that I've worked with is that they're able to reach a number of different people in maybe regional areas. Maybe it was an organization that was very well known within their state or their local region. And then all of a sudden they're able to reach those people who are further away. And so thinking about, as you structure programs, is that a component of your organization that you want to keep? Is it a component that seems to be growing and bringing in not only interest, but maybe revenue that comes along with that, whether that's donors or more visitors or people who are participating in educational programs? And then for staff, it's thinking about how do they manage that?
Right.
So for staff, I mean, I know a number of organizations now that are saying, oh, everything we do has to be hybrid. And you don't realize, I think, it's easy to, maybe not easy. There are certain challenges that come along with doing virtual. There are certain challenges that come along with doing in-person programming.
Sure.
And then all of those challenges converge when you do a hybrid program.
For sure.
And so
Absolutely.
thinking about that is, and making sure that your staff are equipped to be able to handle that, because you never want to stretch yourself outside of really, there's always staff are able to do a lot with very little space and time. And it's always amazing to see, especially in the nonprofit sector.
Oh yeah, I was about to say, that's one of the things that I love about working so extensively with nonprofits is seeing how much impact these organizations can make while they're, with minimal resources. And it always amazes me. And that's kind of what's endeared me to the nonprofit sector all these years. But one of the things that's actually been concerning me lately is I've been reading a lot of articles about how nonprofits are specifically being impacted due to COVID through either their fundraising efforts or the way that they have, or the types of resources, or being able to get people to work. I mean, we've seen this kind of mass exodus throughout the past year and a half of people just saying, I don't want to work anymore. I'm taking a sabbatical. I've had people say, I'm quitting my job. And I'm like, oh, where are you going? I decided I wanted to write a book. And I'm like, oh my God, but that's happening. And so one of the concerns in that, and especially around the fundraising, because nonprofits typically don't produce things. So you're not making widgets that you're taking to market and selling. You're relying on being able to get fundraising activities to come in and to help support. And if that's been challenged because of COVID, and we have for-profit companies that want to be able to start helping on a philanthropic basis, how would you give a recommendation for a business to say, we've been successful during the COVID period, and we want to help give back because other people have had challenges? Given that, what kind of advice would you give a for-profit company?
No, absolutely. I think the advice I'd give a for-profit company would depend on where they started. So there's many companies that have a set of values, or they already have, say, philanthropic goals that they've laid out, like education or health, or any number of different issues within social areas. And if you have those types of areas that you've outlined as a company that you know you'd like to really dig into, it's figuring out which organizations are contributing to that. So when I work with organizations, we talk about two things. One is your population indicators, and then your performance indicators. And this comes from a method, it's called results-based accountability. And in those population indicators, you think about things like reducing poverty or homelessness, or those types of big picture. What are you seeing within your region? Or if you're a more global based company, what are you seeing, on a larger scale, either countrywide or worldwide? And then when you look at those performance indicators, no company, whether you're a nonprofit or a for-profit, is going to be able to resolve that issue alone. And so it's thinking about, what can my company do and what does my company provide? And then where are the partners that will really enhance what is going on? And so if you're an organization that's been fortunate enough to be doing well during the pandemic and you're looking to give back, think about those types of areas. Is what do I contribute specifically? And then if you want to enforce, or not enforce, but enhance that type of cause, which other organizations are really going to be beneficial to partner with? And maybe those are organizations that you target and approach and say, hey, what are you doing in this area? And what could you do with, extra funding, or what could you do with, say, employee volunteerism? I know a number of different strategies that companies use to get their organizations involved with charitable causes.
Well, I appreciate that. And as a business, you don't have to say, I've got $1 million that I want to be able to feed back. I mean, these organizations will take any assistance that you can give them, and if it's just $1,000 or $5,000, find a good way to impact your local community or a national nonprofit potentially that meets the needs, like you're saying, of what you feel as a business meets your philanthropic goals. So Carolyn Keller, thank you so much, from Curio 412. I think you've got such an amazing business. I really wanted to learn more about it. And I love how you kind of can help a for-profit company get involved more philanthropically with nonprofits where they happen to live, or nationally, depending on what their goals are as a group, and help guide them through that entire process, as well as doing that impact management, being able to help nonprofits look at, are we getting impact where we're putting dollars and people hours towards specific type of goals, and come up with metrics to be able to measure success. I really think what you do is an amazing thing, and can be a great fit for any of our clients. And I'd like to highly recommend you. If anybody has needs in those areas, please feel free to reach out to Carolyn Keller. Her contact info will be down below. So email, phone, best way, website?
Oh, either. I'd say email. Start with email, but I'm always available via phone too.
Okay, great. Thank you, Carolyn. Have a great day. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, Steve.
All right, be well. Bye.